Have you ever felt like you're not enough, that you need to prove yourself all the time to be valued? This silent pressure, which accompanies you at work, in relationships, and even in moments when you should be at peace, is more common than it seems, but few people talk about it. The truth that no one tells you is that being a woman of value has nothing to do with collecting approval, pleasing everyone, or fitting into expectations that were not created by you. Being a woman of value is a deep, intimate process. It's about building who you are from the inside out. It's about recognizing your own voice, honoring your story, and learning to validate yourself, even when the world seems to want to convince you otherwise. We often grow up believing that we need to be perfect, that we can't fail, that we need to do everything to be recognized. And this creates an exhausting cycle of searching for acceptance that never ends. What if I told you that you don't have to live like this anymore? What if true power lies precisely in the moment you decide to free yourself from this incessant search? Before we continue, comment here on a word that represents what you seek most on your journey. It could be strength, freedom, self-confidence, peace. I really want to know what is pulsing inside you right now. This is our space. It is an open conversation for women who are ready to resignify their own stories. What no one tells you is that the value you seek so much already exists within you, waiting to be accessed, strengthened, and lived with courage. Let's go together. I remember a very close friend who, for years, lived to please everyone, from her family to her co-workers, and in relationships that only demanded more from her than she wanted to give. She did her best to be seen as the good girl, the person who always said yes, who never caused problems, and who did everything to avoid conflict. But deep down, that constant search for acceptance left her with a huge void. She felt tired, exhausted, and yet it seemed like it was never enough. External validation was like a coin that always disappeared, leaving her with no reserves. This type of story is more common than we imagine, especially among women who grew up hearing that being strong means not showing weakness, or that they need to constantly prove their worth. And that's exactly where the dangerous myth that we need to break comes in. Value doesn't come from outside. It's not approval that someone gives us. It's an internal construction, a daily achievement that begins with the way we see and treat ourselves. Carol Dweck, a renowned psychologist, explains this phenomenon through the concept of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, we believe that our value is something fixed that needs to be achieved and confirmed by external factors: praise, immediate success, social acceptance. If we don't receive these signals, we think we're not good enough, that we have no value. It's a cycle that traps us, because everything depends on the way others see us, which is volatile and not always aligned with who we really are. In a growth mindset, however, the vision changes completely. Value is not a prize that someone grants, but rather something that we build, a continuous process of learning, of accepting failures, of growing with challenges, and of strengthening ourselves internally. This means that true self-esteem comes from the inside out, from recognizing our qualities, of respecting our time, of celebrating our achievements, even if they're small, and of being kind to ourselves, especially when we're facing difficulties. And when we start to believe this, the transformation is profound. We stop looking for validation outside and start to live with authenticity, autonomy, and above all, self-love. Now I want to hear from you. Comment here if you have ever experienced or are experiencing this reality of seeking your worth in the approval of others. Write "I have experienced it" or "I am experiencing it," so that we can create a safe space together where no one will be judged, but everyone will be heard and welcomed. Sharing is a fundamental step to breaking this cycle and starting to build your worth from the inside out, at your own speed and in your own time. Because this journey is unique and no one is better than you to be the protagonist of your story of courage, transformation, and empowerment. I really want to accompany you on this journey and help strengthen this movement of women who finally understand that true power is within them, and that this discovery is what will change everything. Reaching the turning point is a turning point in the journey of any woman seeking to redefine her value. It is that powerful moment when you decide, consciously and firmly, that you will no longer let the opinions of others dictate who you are or how much you are worth. This is the point at which dependence on external approval begins to dissolve and a new path opens up, where building your value becomes a daily choice, a constant practice that you cultivate for yourself. It is not something that happens overnight, nor is it a magical event that solves everything, but rather a series of small and significant decisions that together shape your identity, your self-esteem, and your personal power. This turning point is about taking responsibility for being the protagonist of your own story, where you respect, honor, and prioritize yourself, regardless of external judgments or expectations. It is as if you start to hold the ruler of your value in your own hand, without depending on anyone else to define your worth. And this construction of value happens precisely in the small actions of everyday life, which often go unnoticed, but are fundamental to strengthening your identity and self-confidence. It can be the simple act of allowing yourself to say no when something doesn't make sense to you, or recognizing a quality of yours that you usually underestimate. It's also about creating routines that nourish your emotional and mental well-being, such as setting aside time to take care of yourself, reflect, celebrate a personal victory, no matter how small, and practice self-compassion in the face of difficulties. Each of these actions is a small brick in this solid construction that no one can take away from you. This is where the growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about so much comes in. Value is a skill that is developed, a daily practice, and not a fixed point that you either have or don't have. The more you dedicate yourself to this internal construction, the more you realize that what really matters is your relationship with yourself, and not external approval. This path requires courage, persistence, and, above all, self-love to keep moving forward, even on days when insecurity hits hard. Now, I really want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what would be a small step you can take today to start or continue building your value? Write "my step" here and complete it with your attitude, whether it's looking in the mirror and praising yourself, setting aside time to take care of yourself, or even allowing yourself to pause when the world asks too much of you. This space is for us to be inspired, supported, and reminded that every step forward, no matter how small it may seem, is an act of courage and self-love. Together, we will create a chain of women who choose to value themselves daily, who know that true power lies in the constant choice to care for and honor themselves. The change begins with this decision, and I'm here to remind you that you are capable of taking this step every day until it becomes part of your essence. When we talk about what truly defines a woman of value, it's important to understand that we're not talking about perfection or an unattainable standard, but rather about characteristics that we can all cultivate, regardless of where we are on our journey. The first of these characteristics is self-knowledge, which is the foundation for any true transformation. Knowing yourself goes far beyond listing your qualities or defects. It's about diving deep to understand your emotions, your limits, your desires, and most importantly, the stories you tell yourself about who you are. For example, a woman who dedicates herself to knowing herself recognizes when she's being influenced by insecurities or limiting beliefs, and begins to question those inner voices that try to diminish her value. Self-knowledge is what allows you to make choices that are aligned with what truly matters to you, and not with what others expect you to be. It's an ongoing process that requires patience and courage to look within, even when the truth isn't easy to face. The second characteristic is the courage to say no. This simple yet powerful word is often underestimated or even feared by those who are used to prioritizing others. above themselves. Saying no is an act of self-love and respect because it means establishing clear boundaries and protecting your emotional and physical space. A woman of value understands that she cannot be everything to everyone, and that saying no does not make her selfish but rather whole. Think about that friend who is always saying yes to everything, even when she is exhausted, just so as not to disappoint anyone. In the long run, this attitude wears her down and steals vital energy, creating a cycle of frustration and low self-esteem. When she learns to say no, she is actually saying yes to her own mental health, her dreams, and her growth. This courage is a fundamental tool for those who want to live authentically and build a life aligned with their values. Finally, the third characteristic is the commitment to one's own evolution. Being a woman of value means understanding that life is a journey of constant learning, where each challenge, each mistake, and each achievement are opportunities to grow. This commitment manifests itself in the willingness to leave one's comfort zone, to seek new knowledge, to reinvent oneself, and to forgive oneself when things don't go as planned. Imagine a woman who, even after a disappointment, decides to get up, reflect, and move forward with more strength and wisdom. It is this attitude that keeps her moving, building a solid and resilient identity. And most importantly, all of these characteristics can be developed by any woman because they are based on the growth mindset, the belief that our skills and values are not static, but can be cultivated with practice, patience, and intention. No matter where you are right now, you can start today to invest in yourself, to learn more about yourself, to stand up with courage, and to commit to your own growth. And I want to know from you, which of these three characteristics do you feel you are already developing? Write here in the comments, "I already have," and complete with the characteristic. I want to recognize you for this and celebrate each step of this journey with you. One of the biggest obstacles that try to steal your value is the constant comparison with other women. That silent trap that makes us doubt our own journey and belittle our achievements. Who has never found themselves scrolling through social media, seeing the perfect life that others seem to have, and felt that tightness in their chest, as if they were always behind, always falling short? This comparison, in addition to being unfair, is extremely exhausting, because each person has their own time, their own battles, and their own unique values. And no one lives their entire life in a social media feed. Another challenge that many women face is the fear of making mistakes, which paralyzes and prevents them from trying, taking risks, and even dreaming big. The fear of failure can be so strong that it ends up keeping us in a comfort zone that suffocates us, but which seems safe. Finally, the need for approval is a challenge that is as real as it is invisible. The desire to be accepted, recognized, and loved by others can lead us to sacrifice our desires and our limits, making our value depend on the gaze of others and not on our own recognition. Let's think about everyday situations that reflect these challenges. Imagine a woman at work who hesitates to present a new idea because she's afraid of being judged or making a mistake in front of her colleagues, or the woman who at a family gathering keeps quiet so as not to displease or cause conflict, even though she feels that her opinions are important. Or the woman who, every time she sees photos of her friends traveling, achieving goals, or simply appearing happy, feels that she's not on the same level and questions herself too much. These examples show how comparison, fear, and the search for approval can infiltrate our lives in subtle but powerful ways, undermining our self-esteem and taking away the strength that should be vibrating within us. However, being a woman of value doesn't mean living without these challenges. No one is exempt from them, but rather learning to deal with them in a healthy and conscious way. Facing these obstacles is an act of courage and self-knowledge. A woman of value recognizes that comparison is a trap and chooses to focus on her own progress, celebrating her achievements, even if they seem small to the world. She understands that the fear of making mistakes is a Sign that she is challenging herself and that mistakes are a fundamental part of growth, not a definitive failure. As for the need for approval, she begins to break this cycle by validating herself, building her self-esteem based on her own recognition and self-love, not on the acceptance of others. This does not mean that these difficulties magically disappear, but that a woman of value learns to face them with resilience, using these situations as fuel to strengthen her identity. Now, I want to hear from you right here in the comments which of these challenges tries to bring you down. Comment, "My challenge is," and let's talk about it together, because recognizing what weighs us down is already half the way to overcoming and rebuilding our value daily. After all, our journey is made up of ups and downs, and the most important thing is not to give up on yourself. Staying focused on building your true value requires more than just willpower. It requires a strong mindset, environments that empower you, and of course, consistent action. The growth mindset, a fundamental concept that Carol Dweck teaches us, is the key to understanding that value is not something fixed, but a skill that we can develop every day, even in the face of challenges and failures. To do this, it is essential to cultivate thoughts that drive you, that recognize your achievements, and that do not let you fall into the trap of destructive self-criticism. In addition, the environments you frequent, whether physical, emotional, or digital, play a huge role in your evolution. Being around people who inspire you, who respect your journey, and who celebrate your growth creates a support network that strengthens your self-confidence and helps you stay focused on your goals. Finally, none of this works without consistent action. Small daily actions such as setting aside time for reflection, practicing self-care, setting realistic goals, and celebrating each advance, however small, are what will transform theory into practice and intention into results. Now, speaking of practical tips, I'm going to share some that you can implement today, so you can start living this consistency that will transform you into a truly valuable woman. First, establish a simple routine that prioritizes your well-being and self-knowledge. It could be a moment of silence in the morning, a quick meditation, or even a journal where you write down what you've learned about yourself each day. Second, review your networks and social circles. Reduce contact with those who bring you doubts, insecurities, or judgments, and invest in connections that elevate you, encourage you, and make you feel accepted. Third, practice self-compassion. When you make a mistake, don't punish yourself. Recognize the learning that comes from failure and move forward with more wisdom. And finally, set realistic and accessible goals, ones that challenge you without overwhelming you, so that you can celebrate constant achievements and feel growth at your own pace. The secret is to transform the construction of your value into a habit, a routine that over time becomes part of your essence. And perhaps most importantly of all, I want to emphasize that this path is not about perfection, but about continuity. There is no woman who never has doubts, fears, or difficult days. What really matters is the daily decision to get up and continue investing in yourself, even if the steps are small or hesitant. Consistency is an act of self-love and courage that builds, little by little, a solid and true foundation for your worth. It doesn't have to be everything right now. It doesn't have to be fast, but it does have to be constant. That's why I want you to commit to me and to yourself now. If you are committed to your evolution, comment here in the comments, "I choose to grow." This phrase has power, and I want you to adopt it today as a pact of strength, determination, and self-confidence for your journey. Let's go together, because growth is a path that is made with courage, step by step, and you are not alone. Closing this profound conversation about what it truly means to be a woman of value is more than a moment of closure. It is an invitation for you to embrace a journey that begins from the inside out. Becoming this woman, authentic, strong, aware, and aligned with her own value, is not something distant or reserved for a privileged few. It is an accessible journey that we can all take, regardless of our starting point. What matters is recognizing that true value is not a gift we receive from the outside world, but a daily construction, a continuous investment in who we are, in the respect we have for ourselves, and in the courage to be true to our essence. This transformation is made up of choices, small steps, the courage to face fears and overcome obstacles, and an unwavering commitment to our own growth and well-being. It is in this process that self-confidence blossoms and becomes the solid foundation that supports all other areas of our lives. And if you felt this message vibrate within you, if you identified with it and understood that this journey is for you, then I want to extend a special invitation to you that goes beyond this video. Subscribe to the channel, because together we are stronger, and this community is a space to grow, learn, and support each other. Here, you will find content that will help you strengthen your mindset, cultivate self-knowledge, develop your courage, and commit to constant evolution. And it doesn't stop there. Share this video with a friend you want to see blossom, who you know has incredible potential within her and who deserves to be reminded every day of her worth. Because a woman of worth not only builds her own path, but recognizes and celebrates the worth of others. Together, we are a network of strength, inspiration, and transformation. Your attitude of sharing this knowledge is a powerful act that multiplies impact and elevates other women to recognize, value, and free themselves. Finally, I want to express my deepest gratitude for you being here now, dedicating your time to listening and reflecting on your journey of value. Know that you are already incredible for simply choosing this path, for seeking to grow, for wanting to know yourself better, and for being open to transformation. This is a decision that changes everything, because it is from it that new possibilities, new strengths, and new achievements are born. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of this moment in your life, and I want you to take this certainty with you. You deserve all the care, all the love, and all the appreciation that you are building. Let's continue this journey together, because your value is real, it is strong, and it is unique. Thank you very much for being here, and until the next video, where we will continue together, evolving and becoming stronger, one woman of value at a time.